Hello, good morning. It's time for business and it's Business 360. My name is Bladen Lukem on Spectrum TV. In today's Business 360, the outline points to World Bank's loan to Egypt. There will be talking points regarding the forex market and the perspective of the pound, based on the fact that many investors are hoping that the British bank could raise interest rates amid inflation highs. From the US yesterday, we saw the rate hikes coming from the US, and it's been consistent in recent times. But these and many more will make up the topics of what we'll talk about today, beginning with the World Bank. The World Bank has approved a $7 billion loan to support Egypt's private sector. According to reports, this fund will be used to develop the entire sector, improve health and education services, and climate change adaptation. Egypt's economy has suffered in the past year, partly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which exposed underlying issues. So looking at African outlook, according to data from the Tanzanian Investment Center, TIC, during the last 2 years of President Samia Hassan's administration, investments in the nation increased from $3.16 billion to $8.64 billion, increasing by 173% over the last 2 years due to ongoing efforts to improve the country's business climate. The pro-business stance of President Samia Hassan is credited with regaining the confidence of both domestic and foreign investors. The number of registered projects into which the funding invested increased from 455 to 575 between March 2021 and February 2023. A 26% increase in Tanzania. But based on bilateral trades within Nigeria and China, bilateral trades between the two countries decreased by 37.3 billion naira, $80 million in 2022 compared to 2021. The trade record was $219 million in 2022 and $300 million in 2021. Both countries have reaffirmed their commitment to fostering closer business ties. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce delegation to the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission was led by Wang Yingyi, Minister and Counselor for Economic and Commercial Affairs at the Embassy of the People's Republic of China. He noted that Nigeria and China have maintained a long-standing trade relationship, which is why the visit was important to sort ways of improving bilateral relations. He added that the Chinese government has invested in the Lekki Free Trade Zone as a result of the public-private partnership with the federal government and the Lagos state government. That's the outlook regarding trade deals between China and Nigeria. Still looking at Nigeria's perspective. The Federal Executive Council approved a sum of 453.9 billion naira for the procurement of rolling stock, operation and maintenance equipment for the Kano-Maradi standard gauge rail currently under construction. The amount also includes 510.93 million naira meant for procuring 4 customized fire service and such, as well as rescue vans in seaports at Port Harcourt, Lagos Port Complex, Tinkan Island Port, and the Marina headquarters of the Nigerian Ports Authority. This was according to the Minister of Transportation Mazu Sambo after this week's council meeting chaired by the President Muhammadu Buhari at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Kicked off in 2021, the 248-kilometer rail line will link Kano, other cities such as Gaozu in Bauchi State, Douara and Machi in Katsina State, Dutse in Jigawa State, the border town of Jibia, before terminating in Niger Republic, the Niger Republic's trade and agricultural hub of Maradi. It would be a good time to go through the global economic perspective, looking at other climbs and economic indices in these countries, beginning with economic calendar, looking at the expected data releases for today, Thursday, 23rd March 2023. The economic calendar this morning had shown some positivity for some of the countries, beginning at the outlook for retail sales month on month. The expected outlook for 1 o'clock would be that of the focus, which was at 0.1%, looking at what the perspective would be for the actual outcome in January. For retail sales year on year in Mexico, it will be expected to reach 3%. Previously, it was at 2.5%. For Great Britain, at 1 o'clock still, the Bank of England interest rate decision would be the highlight for today's data releases. Previously, it was at 4%. The focus is that expectations will get to 4.25% of interest rates. But by 1 o'clock, investors will be looking forward to the Bank of England's decision on interest rates. Looking at central banks around the world amid necessity to tighten based on inflation. Central banks continue to tighten to tackle inflation. The Swiss National Bank raised its key policy rate by 50 basis points to 1.5%, following a similar move in December, bringing borrowing costs to the highest since 2008, despite the recent turmoil in the banking sector. The Norges Bank also hiked interest rates by 25 basis points to 3% as expected, and the Bank of England is set to push rates higher for an 11th straight meeting. Yesterday, the Federal Reserve raised rates as expected, dialing back expectations of a rate cut this year. And that is where we're going to find out more regarding interest rates and increase by the Federal Reserve. The U.S. Central Bank has raised interest rates again, despite fears that the move could add to financial turmoil after a string of banks' failures. The Federal Reserve increased its key rate by 0.25 percentage points to the range of 4.75% to 5% as expected, calling the banking system sound and resilient. The Fed has been raising borrowing costs in a bid to stabilize prices, but a sharp increase in interest rates since last year has led to strains in the banking systems. Still, during the press conference, Fed Chair Powell admitted a pause was considered in days running to the meeting. On the other hand, minutes later, he said that the committee does not see rate cuts this year. Fed Chair Jerome Powell spoke at the FOMC press conference on March 22nd. Let's hear from the Fed Chair.
If needed, borrow reserves against those assets at recent developments in the banking sector. In the past 2 weeks, serious difficulties at a small number of banks have emerged. History has shown that isolated banking problems, if left unaddressed, can undermine confidence in healthy banks and threaten the ability of the banking system as a whole to play its vital role in supporting the savings and credit needs of households and businesses. That is why, in response to these events, the Federal Reserve, working with the Treasury Department and the FDIC, took decisive actions to protect the U.S. economy and to strengthen public confidence in our banking system. These actions demonstrate that all depositors' savings and the banking system are safe. With the support of the Treasury, the Federal Reserve Board created the Bank Term Funding Program to ensure that banks that hold safe and liquid assets can, if needed, borrow reserves against those assets at par. This program, along with our long-standing discount window, is effectively meeting the unusual funding needs that some banks have faced and makes clear that ample liquidity in the system is available. Our banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use.
That was the Fed Chair. Let's move to Africa's perspective. The Central Bank of Tunisia held its key interest rate steady at 8% on March 22, 2023, keeping borrowing costs at the highest since at least 2006 in an attempt to stem high inflation. Annual inflation reached a fresh 4-decade high of 10.4% in February, with food prices going higher by 15.6%. The bank said it was following core inflation very closely, which proved to be rigid, amounting to 9.6% in February 2023 against 9.5% in January and 6.3% a year before. Regarding the evolution of the domestic economy, the board noted that economic growth in 2022 was slightly higher than initial forecast, driven mainly by market services and manufacturing. For 2023, activity prospects remained dependent on external demand recovery, as well as on domestic factors related particularly to the situation of public finances, inflation acceleration, and persisting hydric stress. Let's venture into the commodity markets. The beginning outlook would be the top 10 African countries producing palm oil. Palm oil is a versatile and widely used ingredient in many products we use daily, due to its high melting point and relatively low cost. The production of palm oil has resulted in devastating environmental damage and human rights abuses, despite providing income to rural communities in poorer nations. Indonesia is the largest producer of palm oil, followed by Malaysia and Thailand, with several other African and South American countries also producing significant amounts. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be listing the top 10 African countries producing palm oil. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's Business 360 and my name is Blydon Ukem. Here are the top 10 African countries producing palm oil according to data from the World Agricultural Production. Number 1 is Nigeria. With a production of 1.4 million metric tons, Nigeria is the 5th largest producer of palm oil in the world and the top producer in Africa. Nigeria has a long history of palm oil production and is well suited for its cultivation due to its tropical climate. At number 2 is Cote d'Ivoire. Ivory Coast produced 600,000 metric tons of palm oil in the latest estimates. Cameroon at number 3. The West African country Cameroon is the 12th largest producer in the world with an output of 465,000 metric tons. Ghana is at number 4 with an output of 300,000 metric tons. At number 5 is Congo, Kinshasa. The Democratic Republic of Congo produced 300,000 metric tons of palm oil in latest estimates. Sierra Leone at number 6 with 75,000 metric tons of palm oil produced. Angola number 7 with 55,000 metric tons of palm oil produced. Guinea number 8 with 50,000 metric tons of palm oil produced. At number 9 is Liberia, 45,000 metric tons of palm oil. And number 10, Senegal. Senegal produced 14,000 metric tons of palm oil in latest estimates. It would be a good time to look at what the agricultural market is saying this morning, viewing the price of palm oil and other agricultural commodities like soybeans, wheat at the international market. The perspective of the agricultural market this morning has been some of positivity for the likes of wheat, but negativity for palm oil as well as soybeans. For soybeans, price this morning is $1,447 per bushel, dropping by 1.25 points, a negative 0.09 percentage decline. For wheat's current price is $668 per bushel, upward by 4.89 points, a 0.74 percentage appreciation. Lumber is downward this morning, but palm oil is downward this morning by 58 points, a negative 1.61 percentage depreciation. 3,606 Malaysian ringgit per ton is the price of palm oil. Moving to the energy market, oil declines on risk of mood. WTI crude futures fell to around $70 per barrel today, weighed down by weak global sentiment after the Fed pushed back against baits for interest rate cuts this year. Official data also showed that U.S. crude inventories unexpectedly expanded by 1.1 million barrels last week to the highest level since May 2021, as large builds on the Gulf Coast outweighed a decline at a Cushing, Oklahoma storage hub. Still, the market remains bullish on the outlook for top crude importer China, with International Energy Agency stating recently that the country is expected to drive a 2 million barrels rise in daily global oil demand this year. On the supply side, Russia Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said the country has decided to keep its output at a reduced level through June, taking into account the current situation in the world. Let's move to the market to see prices of crude oil, WTI, and Brent crude, the energy market. The energy market this morning has showed some huge negativity for crude oil and other derivatives of the crude market. US crude, the WTI crude, current price is $70 per barrel, downward by 0.73 points, a negative 1.03% decline. Market is moving fast. For Brent, its current price is $75 per barrel, downward by 0.9 points, a negative 1.28% decline. Natural gas is a little here. Gasoline at the international market is slightly downward, heating oil slightly downward, but coal is slightly upward by 2.55 points. Let's also have a view of the metal market. What the metals are saying this morning: gold price, silver, copper, steel, the metal market this morning. The energy and focus of most of this market, beginning with gold, has been that of positivity. Gold price $1,977 per ounce, upward by 8.33 points, a 0.42% appreciation. Silver is slightly downward, but copper, a little here, a little there, not very solid this morning. Look at steel price, downward by 29 points, 4,125 Chinese yuan per ton, a negative 0.7% decline for steel. It would be a good time to look at the FX market, but we begin with commentary by Bob Icino. The Bank of England is expected to raise rates today. Bob Icino discusses this. Let's hear from Bob.
Rally is fading in the June British pound just a little bit prior to the FOMC decision. Sterling was on its way to its fourth positive session in the last 5. May still get there. We're talking to you now about the close of the New York session, and the pound is up about 0.2% on the high today, 123.19. We were up a little bit more than 0.6%. On the low, we were only down 7 basis points, so not quite even 0.1%. If today's early rally holds, the last 5 sessions will have produced about a 1.1 to 1.3% rally as the British pound works on its 4th consecutive week higher. Now, inflation in the UK came out this morning. It was a little bit surprising, higher than expected. Core year-over-year inflation came out at up 6.2%. That was versus last month's up 5.8% and the expectation of only 5.7%. Month over month, this is the important one, up 1.2% versus minus 0.9% last month and an expectation of only 0.8% higher on the reading.
Thank you, Bob, for the outlook. Let's move straight to the market to see the indices in the market this morning, beginning with Euro against the US dollar before looking at other majors. The euro against US dollar at the international market, the euro is gaining against the US dollar. Most of the currencies are gaining against the US dollar. Upward this morning, current price 1.08 US dollar equaling 1 euro. It has gone past the 1.06 point mark, which has stood for over 2 weeks. Slight upward movement this morning, but a 0.31% appreciation. It's a similar case with pounds against the US dollar. It's gone up to 1.23 US dollar equaling 1 pound. Slight movement in the market. Let's look at Naira's perspective also in the international market against the majors. The US dollar against the Naira. Current price 459.95 Naira equaling 1 US dollar. It's been around this level for over 2 months now. For the euro against the Naira, 496 naira equaling 1 euro. A gain for the euro, 1.42 points gain at the international market. At the close of yesterday's market, for the pounds against the naira, same story, 564 naira equaling 1 pound, gaining 2.78 points in favor of the pound. Let's look at the parallel market and see how this affects the parallel markets. Naira's performance in the parallel market. The performance of Naira has been quite difficult. The struggles continues, but the exchange rate, dollar to Naira, at the buying rate would be 749 Naira equaling $1 on the average, and 740 Naira to $1 at the selling rates, the average rate. For pounds to Naira, buying rate is 925 Naira equaling 1 pound on average, and 915 Naira equaling 1 pound at the selling rates, the average rate. For the euro to the Naira, it's 785 Naira to 1 euro for buying rate, and selling rate 770 Naira to euro. Let's look at the cryptocurrency market then. The energy of the fiat and what's happening within the market tends to reflect on the digital currency, which Bitcoin is at the helms of it. $27,706 equaling 1 Bitcoin, upward by 312 points, a 1.14% appreciation. For Ether, current price $1,757 equaling 1 Ether, a 20 points gain, a 1.16% appreciation. Well, the cryptocurrency market is gaining this morning favorably as the struggle for the US dollar continue. It's favoring other commodities. Let's look at the stock market, beginning with global stocks. Asian equity markets were mixed today, pressured by weak global sentiments as the Federal Reserve pushed back against bids for interest rate cuts, which has affected all round and the US dollar, the effect on the US dollar. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told lawmakers that the US government was not considering a blanket insurance for bank deposits. Investors also digested data showing Japanese manufacturing remained pessimistic for the 8th straight month in March, amid concerns about slowing global growth that could hurt the country's export-heavy industries. Shares in Australia, Japan, and South Korea declined. Mainland China stocks fluctuated, and Hong Kong stocks advanced. Let's have a quick look at the Asian stocks, what a picture of Asian stocks are. Up next, we'll be looking at the Nigerian stock market and the performance in the Nigerian stock market. Well, let's look at the Nigerian stock market then. The equity capitalization in the Nigerian capital market rose by 0.05% following the high demands for WAPIC, Guarantee Trust Holding Company, and other equities shares on Wednesday. This translated to a 17.12 billion naira rise in market capitalization from 29.9 trillion naira to 29.92 trillion naira after 5 hours of trading yesterday. The all-share index rose by 31.43 basis points to close at 54,936.11 points. Investors traded 134.15 billion shares worth 1.33 billion naira in 2,479 deals. Let's look at the top gainers. WAPIC led the gainers list with a 2.44% rise in share price, moving from 41 kobo to 42 kobo per share. The bottom loser. MCR topped the losers table after shedding 28 kobo to drop from 2 naira 89 kobo to 2 naira 61 kobo per share. The top volume. Transcorp led the day's trading with 28.12 million shares, valued at 35.92 million naira. This is where we draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. My name is Blyden Lukem. Thank you for watching.